They thought killing a human boy would silence us. They were wrong. When Earth's deadliest general steps onto the battlefield, the galaxy will learn why humanity doesn't just fight to survive. We fight to destroy anything that stands in our way. It began in the underbelly of a city on Earth, one of the countless human colonies scattered across the stars. A small, seemingly insignificant child stood at the front lines of a war the galaxy had long since forgotten. His name was Caleb Hadrian, a boy who didn't yet know how to fire a weapon, but whose mere existence would ignite the greatest conflict the galaxy had ever seen. The Galactic Council had underestimated him. Caleb's family had always been vocal about the oppression Earth faced at the hands of the Council. His mother was a journalist. His father, a retired soldier turned diplomat. Both had fought for Earth's autonomy in every way they could. But no matter how many protests they organized, no matter how loudly they demanded the Council's attention, they were ignored. Until Caleb's death. The assassination was meant to be a message. Earth's voice was small, but the Council's message was clear. Speak out again, and we'll take everything. Even children. Caleb's death was brutal, carried out with the precision and cold indifference of a regime that had forgotten what it meant to fear. His body was left in the streets of the colony's capital, an unmarked grave in a city that had long since lost its soul. But what the Council failed to anticipate was that the boy's death would be the spark that set everything aflame. In a small, dimly lit room on Earth's capital, General Catherine Severs watched the broadcast of Caleb's body being dragged through the streets. Her face remained stoic, unreadable. But those who knew her best saw the change in her eyes. Cold, calculating, ruthless. Severs wasn't just a military strategist. She was a weapon forged in the fires of conflict, honed by decades of war. She'd led humanity's forces to victory against impossible odds. But this was personal. "Give me the president," Severs commanded, her voice sharp as a knife. The room filled with the tension of 1,000 unspoken words. Her aide hesitated for only a moment before complying. The death of Caleb Hadrian wasn't just a tragedy. It was a declaration of war. The Council had made their move, and now humanity would make theirs. General Severs wasn't a woman who waited for orders. She took them. And right now, she was taking this war. The president's voice crackled through the communicator. "General Severs, I trust you're watching the news. What's our next move?" "There is no next move, Mr. President. The only move left is retaliation," Severs replied, her tone devoid of hesitation. "The Council has made their mistake, and now they will pay the price." The president's silence spoke volumes. Earth's response was long overdue. For years, humanity had been content to sit on the sidelines, a secondary player in the galactic theater. But the time for patience was over. The boy's blood would mark the beginning of a new chapter for Earth, and for the entire galaxy. In the depths of Earth's military command, Severs mobilized the troops. She didn't need to wait for approval. She was Earth's final weapon, and she would unleash hell on anyone who dared to stand in her way. The orders were simple. Every available fleet, every capable ship, every soldier, every fighter, all must be ready. Earth would no longer cower in the shadow of the Council. General Severs would lead them into battle, and she would make sure the Council never forgot why humans were a force to be reckoned with. But the Council wasn't ready. They never saw it coming. Far across the galaxy, in the marble halls of the Galactic Council's headquarters, the political elite debated the death of Caleb Hadrian. They thought their move had been calculated, diplomatic, effective. They didn't realize they had just pulled the pin from a grenade. They didn't know that by killing a human boy, they had woken the deadliest general the galaxy had ever known. And soon they would learn. The battle for the future of the galaxy had just begun. The moment the orders came down, the galaxy's most feared military leader emerged from the shadows, and everything changed. General Catherine Severs wasn't just Earth's greatest weapon. She was its reckoning. In the darkened war rooms beneath Earth's capital, Severs stood before a tactical display that stretched across an entire wall. It showed the positions of every fleet, every ship in Earth's military arsenal, and the movement of the Galactic Council's forces. She studied the map with a cold, calculating focus. The Council had made its move. Now it was her turn. Severs was a woman of few words, but when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of entire armies. "Activate the fleet," she ordered. "Prepare for a full-scale attack. Target the Council's weak points." Her subordinates responded immediately, springing into action. Earth's fleet was a far cry from the advanced, colossal warships the Council commanded. But General Severs had never needed overwhelming numbers. She thrived on strategy, on outthinking her enemies, on turning the smallest advantage into total victory. It was how she'd won every battle, and it was how she would win this one. "General, are you sure we're ready?" a voice asked hesitantly. It came from Captain Mendoza, a veteran officer who had served with Severs for years. "The Council's fleet vastly outnumbers us." Severs turned slowly, her eyes narrowing, piercing the captain with an intensity that could freeze a man in place. "We've been underestimated before. That was their mistake. Now, they'll learn what happens when you push humanity too far." She wasn't just talking about her military strategy. She was talking about humanity's spirit, a ferocity that no advanced weapon or fleet could ever hope to match. Her thoughts returned to Caleb Hadrian, the innocent boy whose death had set everything in motion. She didn't know him personally, but his story was now inseparable from hers. The Council had thought they could break humanity by silencing a child. What they hadn't realized was that they had turned him into a symbol, a rallying cry for a species that had never known true defeat. Severs stepped away from the display and headed for the command center. Her boots echoed through the steel hallways, the sound sharp and deliberate. As she passed by soldiers and officers, their eyes followed her, filled with equal parts fear and reverence. They knew what she was capable of. They knew she could turn the tide of war with a single command. And now, the entire galaxy would witness it. The fleet was ready. The first wave of ships, small but nimble, launched from Earth's orbit, their engines humming as they surged toward their destination, the heart of the Council's territory. Severs had chosen her target carefully. The Council's core systems were heavily defended, but there were weaknesses, overlooked gaps in their defenses that they never thought humans would be clever enough to exploit. As Earth's ships entered deep space, Severs communicated with her fleet through a secure channel. "Remember your mission. We're not here for conquest. We're here for justice. If you strike fast and hit hard, the Council will crumble. But don't underestimate them. They will retaliate. Stay sharp." The fleet responded with a chorus of affirmations, their confidence growing with each passing moment. Severs had a reputation for leading with an almost supernatural precision, and no one doubted that her plans were as flawless as her leadership. But even Severs knew the risks. The Council's retaliation would come swiftly, and it would be brutal. Yet in that moment, as she gazed out at the vastness of space, she couldn't shake the sense that this war had already been won before the first shot was fired. The Council had underestimated Earth, and that was a mistake they would never recover from. Hours passed as the fleet advanced, and Severs stood at the helm, watching the stars pass by. Her mind raced, formulating the next move. The Council's response would come soon. She could feel it in her bones. But she wasn't concerned. Every piece was in place. Every move had been calculated. Earth would never be the galaxy's pawn again. Then, just as she expected, a new wave of Council ships appeared on the edge of the system. They came in a massive formation, an imposing fleet of warships with the unmistakable insignia of the Council. A dozen massive ships, each capable of obliterating an entire planet, lined up in the distance, their weapons powered up and ready for battle. "Contact in range," a lieutenant reported. "Weapon systems online, General." Severs didn't flinch. "Fire when ready." The moment she gave the command, Earth's fleet opened fire. The first wave of missiles launched, streaking through space toward the incoming Council ships. They exploded upon impact, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The Council ships responded in kind, their cannons firing with devastating force. But Severs had anticipated their moves. Earth's smaller, more maneuverable ships darted in and out of the enemy fire, their agility making them difficult targets. And when the Council ships closed in, Severs executed her final move, one she had kept secret even from her own fleet. A hidden fleet of human warships, cloaked in the darkness of space, appeared out of nowhere and struck from behind. The Council never stood a chance. In mere hours, Severs had crippled their entire offensive. The first major battle of the war had ended in a decisive victory for Earth. The Council's massive ships, once thought invulnerable, lay broken and burning in space. Severs stood before the tactical display once more, watching the aftermath of the battle unfold. Her expression remained unreadable, but inside, she allowed herself a rare, fleeting moment of satisfaction. The war had begun, and the galaxy had just been introduced to the true face of Earth's wrath. The Galactic Council had expected Earth to break under pressure. What they didn't anticipate was a species capable of turning its outrage into annihilation. In the wake of Severs' crushing victory, Earth's military and civilian populations were electrified. News of the Council's humiliating defeat spread like wildfire, and the whispers of rebellion began to swell into a chorus of defiance. The death of Caleb Hadrian had been a catalyst, but now Earth had a cause, and a leader who would carry it to the very gates of the Council. Severs knew that the Council would retaliate. They had no choice. Their pride, their authority, their empire, all were at stake. The Council's reaction came faster than expected. A retaliatory fleet, 3 times the size of the previous one, emerged from the outer reaches of Council space, bearing down on Earth's defenses with ruthless speed. Severs wasn't surprised. In fact, she had anticipated this exact move. But while the Council might have the numbers, Earth had the will to fight, and that made all the difference. Earth's military forces, emboldened by their previous triumph, stood ready. The first wave of defenders, equipped with the new tactics Severs had perfected, moved into position. Earth's smaller, swifter ships would harry the Council fleet, while their heavy cruisers, bolstered by cutting-edge human-made weapons, would form a wall of destruction. It was a strategy designed not just to defend, but to draw the Council into a series of devastating traps. "I want every ship ready for the worst," Severs said, her voice cold and commanding. "They'll come at us with everything they've got. But they don't know the terrain. They don't know the people they're dealing with. Earth fights to win." In the heart of Earth's military command, officers worked furiously, coordinating the fleets as the Council ships drew closer. Tension crackled through the air like static, the weight of impending battle palpable. For most of the crew, it wasn't just another conflict. It was a chance to prove that Earth was no longer the galaxy's punching bag. Meanwhile, Severs stood in the shadows, calculating her next move. She had no doubt that the Council would be furious, but their reaction would be predictable. What they hadn't expected was the human capacity for innovation under pressure. Earth's forces, while smaller, were constantly evolving, adapting to every new challenge. As the Council's fleet arrived in Earth's system, the battle erupted in full force. The Council's flagship, a massive, fearsome ship capable of reducing a city to rubble with a single shot, led the charge. But it wasn't just the size of their ships that gave them strength, it was their arrogance. They underestimated the humans they were fighting. They had no idea just how far Severs was willing to go to ensure Earth's survival. Severs gave the order to engage. The battle was brutal. Council ships unleashed waves of fire, but Earth ships danced around them, dodging shots and returning fire with deadly precision. Severs had drilled her forces in the art of guerrilla warfare in space, and now it was paying off. As the Council's ships fired indiscriminately, Earth's smaller vessels swarmed like hornets, striking at weak points, disappearing before the Council could retaliate. The tide was shifting again, but this time, the Council would not have the luxury of surprise. Every move they made was countered, every plan was anticipated. Every ship was hit where it hurt most. The Council fleet, once imposing, began to fracture under the relentless pressure. Within hours, their forces were scattered, their flagship crippled, and their hopes of a quick victory dashed. Severs didn't celebrate the victory. There was no time. The Council was reeling, but it wouldn't stay down forever. They would regroup, they would adapt, and they would come back stronger. This was only the beginning. I want every ship in the fleet repaired and ready for the next phase, Severs said, her eyes steely. The Council will retaliate. We need to be prepared. And so, Earth's forces began to regroup, knowing that they had won a critical battle. But the war was far from over. The Galactic Council had just learned what it meant to provoke humanity, and Earth's wrath was just getting started. The Council thought it had seen humanity's strength. It hadn't. Earth's true power lay not in its ships or its tactics, but in something far more dangerous: its will to survive. The battle for Earth was far from over, but in the wake of their recent victory, General Severs knew one thing for certain: the Council wasn't the real threat. It wasn't their fleet or their weapons or their power over the galaxy. The true threat was their underestimation of humanity itself. Despite the victories in space, Severs' strategy had always been clear. This was only the beginning. What the Council had failed to grasp was that Earth's strength wasn't defined by its military prowess alone. No, it was something deeper, something primal. Humanity had survived wars, catastrophes, and extinction-level events. They had endured through centuries of suffering and struggle, always fighting, always adapting. And now, the galaxy would see what that resilience truly meant. Severs sat in the war room, the map of the galaxy spread before her. Each line, each coordinate, represented another challenge Earth would face. The Council might regroup, might grow stronger, but it didn't matter. Humanity had already proved one thing: it could bend the galaxy to its will. "General," came a voice from behind. It was Captain Mendoza, her trusted right hand. "We've finished analyzing the Council's last attack. They're going to try something different this time. They'll target Earth's infrastructure directly." Severs turned to face him, her expression unwavering. "They don't understand. We've lived through worse." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what she meant. Earth's history was filled with moments of near destruction. Great wars, plagues, environmental collapse. Humanity had faced it all and emerged stronger each time. The Council might hold the galaxy in their grip, but humanity held something far more dangerous: the instinct to survive. Severs walked over to a nearby table, where a holographic display lit up. A map of Earth's colonies now flickered on the screen. "Start moving our most critical assets to the deep space stations. It's time to put the plan in motion." The plan wasn't about fighting fire with fire. No, that would be predictable. The Council had weapons and fleets, and Earth had Severs. But the Council hadn't yet faced Earth's adaptability, its relentless drive to evolve under threat. Severs knew that Earth's greatest asset wasn't its ships or technology. It was its ingenuity. For the past few years, Earth had been developing technology in secret, far from the Council's prying eyes. The Council might have assumed that humanity was still a fledgling species in the galactic community, but they hadn't seen the depths of human innovation. Earth had spent decades studying alien technology, reverse engineering it, and creating something that could potentially level the playing field. Severs didn't need the Council's permission to use it. She wasn't about to ask for it either. She had something far more dangerous than any weapon in their arsenal: a plan and the drive to see it through. "Activate the deep space defenses," she ordered, "and begin testing a prototype." The prototype was humanity's last card, a weapon unlike anything the Council had ever seen. It was a piece of technology so powerful, so advanced, that it could shift the balance of the war in an instant. But it was still in its infancy, and Severs knew the risks. If it failed, Earth would be vulnerable. But if it worked, the galaxy would never see the same. The tension in the command center grew as technicians began activating the weapon. It was massive, hidden deep in the asteroid belts, concealed from prying eyes. It was a gamble, but Severs wasn't afraid of the odds. After all, what were the Council's odds when faced with humanity's unwavering determination? Severs watched the screens as the weapon powered up. The energy readings surged, the systems humming to life. She didn't show any emotion, but inside, she felt the weight of the moment. The Council would come, of that she was certain. But when they did, they would be met by something they could never have anticipated. Earth's true strength wasn't in its fleet. It wasn't in the tactics or strategies. It was in its willingness to sacrifice, to adapt, and to do whatever it took to survive. The Council didn't know it yet, but they had just pushed humanity into a corner. And when humanity fought, it didn't ask for mercy. It demanded victory. "Status report?" Severs asked, her voice cutting through the silence. "It's ready, General," came the reply. "The weapon is online." "Good. Prepare to launch at the first sign of a Council fleet." With that, Severs turned back to the map of the galaxy. The Council had made a grave mistake by thinking they knew Earth, by assuming that they had already seen humanity's full potential. They hadn't. And now Earth would show them. The hidden power of humanity was about to unfold, and the galaxy would be forced to reckon with it. The real war was about to begin. The Galactic Council was no longer just fighting Earth. They were fighting the very thing that had made humanity legendary: the will to never back down. The Council's retaliatory fleet arrived in Earth's system with an overwhelming force. Thousands of ships, each more advanced and heavily armed than anything Earth had ever faced, took their positions in a perfect, menacing formation. Their mission was simple: eradicate the threat before it could spread. But as they prepared to make their final strike, they failed to realize the one thing that would seal their fate. General Catherine Severs had already outthought them. In the heart of Earth's military command, Severs stood in front of a massive tactical display. The Council's fleet was like a dark storm approaching, ready to devastate everything in its path. But Severs wasn't intimidated. She'd seen worse. The Council had underestimated humanity's resolve once again. Now she would make them pay. "Prepare all stations," she said, her voice unwavering. "Engage the prototype weapon on my mark. We are not just defending Earth anymore. We are taking the fight to them." Her officers moved quickly, following the exact protocol Severs had set in place after the last victory. Earth's fleets were no longer scattered. They were united in a common cause. The stakes had risen far beyond a simple struggle for survival. This was a fight for the future of the galaxy itself. The Council ships moved closer, their vast armadas looming like a wall of iron and steel. They had the advantage of size, but Severs had something far more important: the element of surprise. With Earth's hidden weapon now primed and ready, Severs knew the Council's fleet was about to learn a hard lesson about underestimating humanity. "Launch the first wave," she ordered. In a flash, Earth's ships scattered in 1,000 directions, engaging the enemy on multiple fronts. The Council's massive warships fired their weapons, but Earth's fleets were agile, unpredictable, and ready for anything. Every shot from the Council was met with a counterstrike. Every attack was repelled with cold precision. But it wasn't just Earth's ships that turned the tide. As the Council fleet grew more disoriented, Severs gave the signal. Hidden deep in the asteroid belt, the prototype weapon activated. A pulse of energy shot out, directed straight toward the center of the Council's formation. The weapon's blast hit like a hammer blow, sending shock waves through space. The energy released was unlike anything the Council had ever encountered. So powerful it ripped through their shields and caused massive damage to the fleet's infrastructure. Entire sections of the Council's ships were torn apart in an instant. "Direct hit, General," a voice called out from the command center. "They're breaking apart." Severs watched the chaos unfold on the screen. The Council fleet, once so confident in their overwhelming strength, was now reeling from the unexpected assault. The pulse of energy had done more than just cripple their ships. It had shattered their morale. They hadn't seen it coming. They couldn't have. "Continue the assault," Severs said. "We finish this now." Her command was sharp, and the fleet followed without hesitation. Earth's forces, bolstered by the devastating success of the prototype weapon, pushed forward with renewed intensity. The Council's massive ships, once towering symbols of their power, began to fall one by one, their advanced weapons no match for humanity's ruthless efficiency. The battle dragged on, each moment feeling like an eternity. But with every passing minute, Earth's forces gained the upper hand. The Council ships were slowly picked apart, their once imposing fleets reduced to drifting wrecks in space. As Severs observed the unfolding victory, she knew the Council wouldn't just concede defeat. They would retaliate, they would regroup, and they would come back stronger. But that was something Severs had already prepared for. No victory was final until the last ship fell. The Council's flagship is still intact, an officer reported. It's retreating into the outer system. Severs' eyes narrowed. The flagship had been the crown jewel of the Council's fleet, its engines powerful enough to destroy entire colonies with a single strike. It was their last remaining symbol of authority. If it survived, the Council would never accept their defeat. "Bring them down," Severs ordered, her voice cold as ice. Earth's fleet converged on the flagship, moving in for the final strike. The Council had underestimated Earth once again, but this time there would be no escape. With one final devastating strike, the flagship exploded into a brilliant burst of fire and debris, marking the end of the Council's reign of terror. Earth had won. But Severs knew this victory, as satisfying as it was only the beginning. The galaxy had learned a harsh truth today. Humanity was no longer content to be a footnote in the universe. Earth had proven that when pushed to the brink, they could turn the tide of any battle, no matter how impossible. The galaxy would never be the same again. The Galactic Council had finally learned the truth about humanity. It was not a species to be ruled. It was a species destined to conquer. In the aftermath of the Council's defeat, the galaxy stood at the edge of a new era. Earth's forces had obliterated the Council's once mighty fleet, and with their flagship in ruins, the Council was no longer a threat. The balance of power had shifted, and Earth, humanity, was at the center. General Catherine Severs stood at the helm of Earth's military command, eyes fixed on the holographic display in front of her. The galaxy, once filled with enemies, now seemed almost empty. It was a silence after the storm, a quiet after the chaos. Earth had won, but there was no celebration, no cheers. Severs knew better. The Council was broken, but its remnants still clung to power. Their defeat had not been the end. It had only been the beginning. "We've secured the victory, General," Captain Mendoza said, standing beside her. "The remaining Council leaders have retreated to their last stronghold. But they're finished. We've taken everything from them." Severs didn't respond immediately. Her mind was already on the next move. The galaxy was still a powder keg. The Council's fall didn't guarantee peace, only that the galaxy would need to find a new way to exist, with Earth at the center of it all. "They'll regroup," Severs replied coldly, "and they'll try to strike back, even if they can't do it directly. We can't afford to underestimate them." Mendoza nodded. "Understood. But their power is shattered. Without their fleet, their influence is gone. We can lead the galaxy into a new era. A fair one. An era where Earth isn't just another colony, but a force to be reckoned with." Severs looked at him, her gaze hard as steel. Humanity doesn't need fairness. It needs power. As she spoke, her thoughts drifted back to Caleb Hadrian, the boy whose death had ignited this war. His death had started it all, but now it felt almost distant. A tragedy, yes, but Earth's victory had long since become something greater. It was about survival, about a species that had fought for every inch of its existence, every battle for its future. Humanity had survived the worst, and now they had become the best. "The Council's remnants will scatter, and we'll hunt them down," Severs continued. "But it's not just about them. We have to send a message, not to the Council, but to every power in the galaxy. The age of humans being ignored, treated as less, is over." Mendoza's eyes narrowed. "You mean we strike now? We show the galaxy that Earth is not just another pawn in a game they control." Severs turned to the holographic map of the galaxy. It was vast, stretching beyond imagination. There were still colonies, alien civilizations, and factions left in the galaxy who would not take kindly to Earth's rise. The Council's defeat was only the first step. The next phase of humanity's future would be a far more dangerous game. "We strike now, Mendoza," Severs said. "But we don't just show the galaxy what we can do. We show them what they'll become if they don't recognize Earth's place at the table." The call to arms was immediate. Earth's military, still riding the momentum of their victory, began the rapid preparation for the next phase of their conquest. It wasn't enough to simply eliminate the Council. It was about establishing Earth as the new center of power, the new force that would shape the galaxy. In the following weeks, Earth's military forces launched a series of calculated strikes against key Council strongholds, targeting their infrastructure and destroying what little remained of their influence. The message was simple, ruthless, and clear. Earth was no longer a colony. Earth was now the dominant power in the galaxy. Meanwhile, Severs continued to work behind the scenes, negotiating with Earth's allies, securing new trade routes, and ensuring that humanity's rise was met with both respect and fear. The Council's downfall had left a power vacuum, and Severs was determined to fill it by any means necessary. Despite the Council's retreat, a handful of high-ranking officials remained in hiding, plotting, scheming, and rallying supporters to their cause. They would never accept defeat, not so easily. But Severs wasn't worried. Earth had already won. What remained was the hard part, the part where humanity would prove, once and for all, that their survival wasn't just a stroke of luck. It was the result of something far greater, a will forged by generations of hardship, a fire that no enemy could ever extinguish. In the heart of Earth's capital, a meeting was being held. Leaders from across Earth's colonies, military command, and scientific community gathered, discussing the future, humanity's future. Severs was there, leading the discussion, guiding the galaxy's newest superpower through the delicate process of establishing dominance. It wasn't just about defeating enemies anymore, it was about diplomacy, about alliances, and about consolidating power. Severs, one of the diplomats, spoke. "You've led Earth to victory. But now, we must think about the future. We can't operate alone. We need alliances, we need strategy. The galaxy won't change overnight." "No," Severs agreed, her voice unwavering. "But Earth's future isn't about waiting. It's about acting. We've waited long enough. Now the galaxy will bend to our will." The room fell silent as Severs' words echoed through the chamber. She wasn't just speaking to those gathered around her. She was speaking to the universe, to every species and faction that had ever doubted humanity's place in the stars. The Council was gone, but Earth's rise had only just begun. The galaxy would never be the same again.